Everybody, it's Boney, and we are here for another episode of Lunch Therapy. And I hope that everybody's excited because today we're doing a live stream. So let's get this thing started. Yeah! Hey, it's me and Boney. Joel Marshall, I'm streaming live. It's a bit of a weird thing with the live stream. I love it. Got a chat room. Gonna do some fun stuff here. It's a little delayed, so when you chat, I might not see it for days. But I'm working on it. I'm gonna take a look and see what you guys have to say. And I see that there's already some chat going on. And Boney was here, but he was, not top notch because he's a little down, he's a little under the weather today. He doesn't have any kind of virus or anything. This is a no virus zone. But he did a workout this morning. Yeah, he's not used to working out a lot. He's skinny. He's really skinny. Everybody thinks, he works out all the time, but he's actually not that fit. Yeah, but anyway, yeah, had a workout today. Made my face all rosy, as Todd is saying in the chat room. So I got some life in me. We were doing the 30-minute hit, Brian Keaton's 30-minute hit. He's got a workout gym up there in Seattle, and we were just, doing it on the Zoom, right? I love the Zoom. I think it's so good. And you saw there's a little bit of my intro there after the Zoom intro. And I was wearing this shirt yesterday. Neil pointed that out. I wore it yesterday because I did an interview yesterday with Jimmy Shin, comedian Jimmy Shin. He's also from the Pacific Northwest, like myself. And he's from Tacoma, Washington. And we're going to be seeing that interview later on today in this show. And it's not live. That's not live. This is live. This is happening right now. Well, 60 seconds, or not, 6 seconds before you see it. And I'm wearing my Zanku shirt today, Zanku chicken. And I'm going to, there's a song about it. A lot of you know it. It goes, Zanku chicken is the best chicken. It's the best chicken in the whole wide world. And we're going to have some other people singing the song in the future, little guest singing. We're not sponsored by Zanku, but I guess we're sponsoring Zanku because it is the best chicken in the whole wide world for those of you that eat chicken. Some of us are farther evolved in the world and we don't actually eat animals. But I'm going to have Mulva on at some point singing this song. Mulva is a virtuoso in the Zanku chicken singing department. Hopefully she's in the chat room. I don't know. So like I said, today we're doing a little bit of an interview, which is like a new thing. And I'm looking in the chat room. It says, I don't eat chicken, but I like the song and I like the garlic sauce. That's the other thing about Zanku, since we're advertising Zanku chicken. Zanku chicken is an establishment that has been in Los Angeles, very dear to my heart. It's been here as long as I've been here. And it used to be this tiny little place, and there was just a line around the block because they had great chicken, and they had organic chicken, and they also had this garlic paste that you could just eat it just right out of the container, and it was so damn good. And it was also, they have the best falafel, as Mulva says in the chat room. All right, so that's enough for the advertisement for Zanku, right? But now I'm going to get on to, I got a story to tell you about Tacoma, because our guest is from Tacoma, Washington. I don't know if any of you are out there from Tacoma, but Tacoma is a fantastic place. They don't have the best chicken, but Zanku has the best chicken. But Tacoma, a lot of people talk about the Tacoma aroma. I don't know if they have that anymore, but it was this smell that as you drove into Tacoma, it just wafted up, and it kind of smelled like poop, I guess. And what it was, turns out, was I think they have a pulp factory there, and they have all these logs just sitting out in the water turning into paper. And while it sits out there, it develops this smell. And I want to do a shout out to Sue Squires Lee, my friend Todd Lee's wife, my friend Sue Squires Lee. She's from Tacoma. Another person from, this is a Tacoma show. And they do still have the Tacoma aroma, apparently. So that's good to know. I have been to Tacoma only a few times. The first real time I went to Tacoma was in college. And I got a chance to go see AC/DC. And I don't know if you guys are huge AC/DC fans like I am, but I love AC/DC. They got me through the 80s, right? There was, while we were listening to other songs, we always had AC/DC to go to for our aggression and our angst and our you can't listen to 80s music and really engage like you can with AC/DC. Back in Black, I wore the record out. Yeah, totally wore the record out, Back in Black. Anyway, huge idols of mine. I didn't know any of them, of course. But, you feel like, when you have a relationship with a celebrity like that, or a band, it's really like a one-way relationship. You feel like you really know them. They have no idea who you are. But you know who they are. And so I got some tickets to go see AC/DC at the Tacoma Dome with my friend Berge Havsepian. And Berge and I, being college kids, we loaded up the truck to go, and there were some other people there, friends of his, and I had brought a case of beer because that's what you do back then. And he said, no, we can't really bring that into the concert. We're going to have to get something, I don't know, more concentrated. So he went in the house and he came out with a bottle of 180 proof Southern Comfort, which I had not really had any experience with. I'd maybe had a sip of Everclear now and then, which is kind of grain alcohol. And this was pretty close to the grain alcohol level. And so we drove off to the Tacoma Dome. And Tacoma is a little ways away from Seattle, a couple hours, sometimes depending on traffic. Hour at least. I don't know. And we got there, and Bears was like, okay, well, we got to bring the booze in, and the only way we can do that is we can get little plastic bags from the 7-Eleven. So we went to the 7-Eleven, which was just swarmed with AC/DC fans, just rockers out there, just going crazy in there. And of course, they were out of plastic bags. They were completely out. People had already come before us and had this idea. So we thought, okay, let's improvise, because we're improvisers, And we said, okay, let's get a super big gulp, and we'll drink half of it, and then we'll pour the Southern Comfort in there. Seems like a logical idea. And then we can be like, oh, I'm just drinking a super big gulp, right? As you go into the concert. Got to the concert, huge line. And I'm out there. I dumped out some of my super big gulp. This is like a big thing. This is ridiculously American size. I think they're illegal now. I think the mayor of New York made them illegal. I don't even know if you can get a super big gulp anymore. It was a gigantic drink as big as your head, and usually you fill it with sugary water, fizzy sugary water, and you drink it all, and you just, you die an early death. But we poured some of it out, drank some of it, put in the Southern Comfort, and just started drinking. Just drinking it in the line. It was a long line. And then suddenly somebody said, you can't bring that in here. And I'm like, well, it's just a super big gulp. And they said, no, you have to drink that out here. So I just drank the rest of it. And it was at that moment that I truly believed that I knew Angus Young, the guitar player for AC/DC. I knew him well. We were friends, even. And I convinced the line that I was good friends with Angus Young. And this is a little side note right here that I got. It's a very important thing, because today I was out driving around in the world taking groceries to my mother-in-law, and I don't go out. I'm totally quarantined because I'm flattening the curve, and I just needed to get these groceries over to my mother-in-law's, and my wife and I are out there and we're looking around. It's like, like you're in a fishbowl looking at people, and people are starting to get, I don't know, I'm getting a little concerned because they're starting to get rebellious and they're just out there flaunting around, and I don't know what's going on. And we got to listen to the people, that are telling us, hey, this could hurt you. And others. But I don't want to talk too much about that. But my point is, you got to listen to your parents sometimes, because we don't want to. And my mom, before I went to this concert, she said, be careful, because someone got stabbed at the Judas Priest concert just last weekend. And I was like, Mom, I'm not going to get stabbed at the AC/DC concert. I actually said those words. I am not, Mom, I'm not going to get stabbed at the AC/DC concert. So, so we went. I'm in line. I'm drinking the Southern Comfort. And I knew Angus. I knew him. I was certain of it. Sometimes when you're certain about something, everybody jumps on board, right? And everybody jumped on board. They pushed me to the front of the line. They were like, hey, this guy knows Angus. And I got into the they have this giant dome there, the Tacoma Dome. That's where the concert was. And in the Tacoma Dome, I got pushed to the front of the stage because everybody's like, hey, he knows Angus. It's like, you got to go up there and talk to him or something. He's got to go up there and see Angus, even though Queensryche was playing at the time. Queensryche, fantastic band, possibly from Tacoma, chat room, anybody? Queensryche was a heavy metal band, probably still is. They're up there jamming away. But everybody's like, he knows Angus, and they threw me up onto the stage. And I got up on the stage, and I don't know what to do. Bouncer throws me back. Audience throws me up. Bouncer throws me back. Audience throws me up. I'm back and forth, back and forth. Queensryche from Germany? No, they sound like they're from Germany, but I don't think so. But anyway, finally I go back into the audience, and I landed wrong or something. And I go under. Go completely under. And people are stepping on my face. I don't know if you've ever been trampled before, but it's not a good feeling. And I couldn't get up. And suddenly I sobered up really fast. If you ever want to sober up really fast, just get trampled. And I turned around on my stomach and I did like a push-up. And I swam out of there like it was the sea. And I swam out of there, and I went to a local hotel. And I walked in the lobby, and it was at that moment that I realized that I was all bloody. I had no shoes. My watch was gone. And I looked like a lunatic. And I went in there, and I was like, wanted to use a phone, and they said, get out. So I left, and I finally found a motel. And in the motel, there were all these rockers just destroying things like they were a rock band themselves. Like they were Led Zeppelin or something, just destroying the room. They weren't even at the concert. And I picked up a phone, and I called. I called my girlfriend because I had told her to go out with her ex-boyfriend. I don't know what I was thinking. I told her, you should go on a date with your ex-boyfriend because he was kind of hassling me. He was my rival. My rival, Brady O'Brien, was when I look back on it, he might not think so, but he was my rival. I always, looked up to him. When we were kids, we used to fight on the playground. And then afterwards, we would punch in the clock like we were in a Warner Brothers cartoon. Morning, Ralph. Morning, Fred. Brady O'Brien picks up the phone. And I said, I'm in Everett at the Tacoma Dome. Which doesn't make any sense. Everett is a completely different place. But Brady, being resourceful that he was, he got in his station wagon. He drove all the way to Tacoma, found me somehow in this motel, rescued me, drove me back, and I threw up in his car. Yeah. To this day, I think about it, and I think, I didn't even call him up and ask him if I could help him clean it up or anything like that. So, I'm kind of a jerk. I went into work. I tried to go into work the next day. I worked at a hotel. And the guy who worked behind the desk with me was this German guy, and he just took one look at me, and I had a footprint on my face. It was a bruise in the shape of a foot, the bottom of a shoe. And he took one look at me, didn't say anything. Didn't ask me a question, didn't say what happened to your face, what is wrong with you. He just said, you could have been killed, And that was it. I guess in Germany, where the band Queensryche, they're from Bellevue. Queensryche is from Bellevue, Washington. I kind of knew that they were not from Germany. But I guess in Germany, people get trampled a lot at like soccer games and stuff like that, so people are walking around with shoe prints on their face all the time. And years later, I was at the Woodway High School reunion, and I walked in and I saw Brady O'Brien, and the guy is now like chief of the fire department in Seattle. I mean, he's like a hero. And he's just all ripped, and he just is like, he's like Bruce Willis or something. And he took one look at me and he said, Joel, you could have died that night. I mean, he's genuinely worried. So thanks, Brady O'Brien. This shout out to Brady O'Brien. Hopefully you're out there doing something. But now I want to move on to the interview because I got the interview with Jimmy Shin here. I'm going to load it up. Jimmy Shin is a comedian from Tacoma, Washington. He's my friend. We didn't meet in Washington at all. We met here in Los Angeles through Eugenia Kuzminia, who's this incredible model / comedian that we're probably going to get on the show at some point. But without further ado, I'm going to play the intro. And the intro is written by Ethan Wall, who is an up-and-coming composer from Seattle, the spawn of Gordy Wall. And then we're going to go right into the interview. And the interview is it's pre-taped. So if you guys say some stuff in the chat room, we're not going to hear you. But we appreciate you being here. All right, thanks. Here comes the interview. All right, everybody. Here we are with Jimmy Shin, comedian here in Los Angeles, and friend of mine. And thanks for coming. You're the second guest that we've had on the show. And I don't know who we is, but it's me. And how's it going there? And are you quarantined? Or
yeah, I'm definitely self-isolating.
Yeah,
it's the term. Yeah, it's been crazy, man. Just hit me about a week ago that we might be in this position for a while. So I just finally got into acceptance.
Yeah.
And I've been catching up on a lot of things that I needed to, like, finishing my book, writing a lot, and doing, online interviews like this one.
Yeah. So you're a super busy guy normally with all your shows. You have a show at the Improv, you have a show at the Comedy Store, you have a show at the Sycamore Tavern, and all over the United States you've been touring. And you also have your show, Wok of Shame, that's on Amazon. What was it like to just have to just suddenly put the brakes on like that?
Honestly, I was in denial. As you know, Joel, I was in Tacoma,
Yeah.
Washington, and I was doing a show out there at the Tacoma Comedy Club. And that weekend, the show was completely sold out. It was packed.
Wow.
And so I thought, oh man, maybe this thing isn't really going to hit the United States. It was still sort of predominantly over in China, over in Italy. And then literally the day after my show, about 8 people passed away at the Kirkland nursing home. You remember that when the
Yeah.
news
Oh
came out?
yeah.
8 people passed away. And so literally the day after that, it was a ghost town in Seattle. So it was sort of a example of things to come everywhere else. So I saw it kind of coming, but it's still, we were in denial sometimes.
Yeah.
You don't want things to happen that you don't want to happen. You're like, maybe it's not going to be as serious, and then it's serious. Then you're like, okay, maybe it's not going to be a complete lockdown, and then it's a complete lockdown. And so it's been a very progressive news every day to the extent of this. So, yeah, it's been crazy, man.
Yeah, it's been nuts. So on this show, what we're doing is we're trying to kind of get away from that a little bit and be, talk about things that maybe we're not hearing in the news, all the virus stuff, and just kind of get away and get, take some time and really talk about some stuff that maybe get our mind off of this. I'm interested in you, Jimmy, because you brought me into your shows and we met through a mutual friend, and it just so happens that we're from the same area. And, but we've done a lot of shows together, but I have not really heard about you. We spent some time in Portland, and that was super fun. But I want to know, are you from Tacoma originally?
Yeah, from Tacoma originally, grew up, went to Foss High School. Then when I was 18, I moved to Seattle to go to the University of Washington. And then I spent, probably another 15 years up in Washington, in Seattle.
See, I didn't even know you and I are both UW graduates.
Yeah.
Did you were you somebody that was doing comedy early on back in the day, like when you were at the UW or anything like that?
No, I'd never even thought of doing stand-up back then. I was thinking that I was like a club DJ back then.
Oh, really?
so I was DJing clubs, stuff like, I was always a performer for sure. And so there was different outlets, different stages. I went through my little karaoke stage, where I would go every weekend to this place in Queen Anne called Ozzy's and do karaoke out there. And then there was a period where I was a club DJ. And then until I found stand-up, I didn't have something where I knew that this is something I could do for a long time. This is something I want to do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And what is, when did you decide that that's what you wanted to do? I mean, was it, you were in the housing industry or something like that? Is that what happened?
Yeah. Honestly, it wasn't a sort of voluntary thing. It sort of happened naturally. Mm-hmm. And I've been doing stand-up for about 3-4 years up in Tacoma, just for fun, as a hobby. I was a real estate agent and a mortgage broker during the day. And then in 2008, the whole market crashed.
Wow.
And it put me in a position where, I basically had everything taken from me. I owned a few properties. Those were going under foreclosure, short sales, stuff like that. And so it was just a slow, gradual process, again, of acceptance of my situation that I was going to have nothing after it was all over. And so it forced me to make some decisions. And one of the decisions that I'm glad I made is to move down to LA to pursue my dreams.
Yeah. Yeah. And when did you move down to LA?
I moved down to LA early 2009.
Did you feel like you needed to get out of Seattle to really get your comedy going? What was the comedy scene like in Seattle?
It wasn't that great back then. Tacoma, to be honest, was better. Mm-hmm. They had some people out there that are now in LA too that I knew at the Tacoma Comedy Club, like Ty Barnett, Lucas Seeley. I think Lucas.
Yeah.
And a couple other cats, Jeff Dye. was out there, but it was okay. You know what I mean? You definitely knew everybody, and you definitely, was sort of a big fish in a small pond
And how
up
did
there.
you? So you have an hour on Amazon. How did you develop that material over that time? How do you tend to develop material?
For me, I'm not one of those people that could just sit down and, I'm going to write comedy for an hour or two. I was more, sort of, there'd be times where I would do that, but for the most part, it would be just inspiration, like, bullshitting with my friends. I'd say something funny and they'd be like, oh, dude, that's a bit right there. So I would just write it into my phone
Uh-huh.
and then, work out the bit later.
Yeah,
And so it would be more, stuff that I would just talk about that would be funny that would later on become bits.
I see. And do you do when you do a set? Do you try and I noticed that one of the things you do is you have a lot of different bits and you kind of move them around. You don't have like
Yeah.
a set way to do something. And how do you do that? Is it because of the audience? You just feed off the audience, or how does that work?
That is because of the audience. And it also keeps it interesting. Like if you do it exactly the same way, and do it that scripted, I feel like it gets a little monotonous.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'll scope out the audience and see if there's any crowd play that I can think up from the audience that I see. And then maybe, open with that up front to keep it original and sort of spontaneous. Otherwise, I do move around the bits according to just how I feel that night and also the kind of audience it is. And sometimes I will take out bits that might be a little too edgy or might be a little offensive to certain people. If I go, oh, this is like going to be all old people, maybe I'll, not focus on my sex bits as much or something. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Oh yeah.
So part of, I think, the job that a stand-up comedian does is you got to read the audience. You can't force feed, just one set to everybody. You have to sort of pick and choose which ones you want to present.
What have you learned about being on the road? Like, when you went out on the road for the first few times, was that an eye opener, or what do you learn?
Honestly, I learned how to become a good stand-up comic on the road. Being in LA, we get kind of spoiled because there's, lots of spots to do. And there's also a particular kind of crowd here. And they kind of get us because we're all kind of the same type of people, kind of the, Don Quixote type people that came out here to pursue our dreams. And so they get our jokes. But then when you go out of town, it's a different crowd. And so they might not appreciate you being an actor. They might not appreciate some of the stuff that you say about, talent or this or that. So, you learn so much on the road about, the rest of America and the rest of the world.
Yeah. We went up to Portland together, and that was like a real trial by fire for me. I was talking about it on the show a couple of episodes ago. And, the things that I learned, I came back, feeling like, it was hard. But when I came back, I was like, oh, I felt stronger, a lot stronger from being out on the road because it's like a different animal completely.
Yeah, honestly, you learn mostly just in stand-up in general, but on the road by making big mistakes. and the bigger the mistake, I think the more you learn. And I remember having that conversation with you after your first set there.
Oh, man.
And quite frankly, they were thinking of cutting.
I know. What a nightmare.
And you went through this sort of process of whether or not you wanted to keep doing it, whether you were going to quit. And I was like, man, this is your test. This is your crossroads where you're either going to become a good stand-up comic. Do you remember this conversation,
yeah.
Joel?
I'll never forget it, I don't think, ever.
Yeah. Or you're gonna press on and you're gonna get better and you're gonna look back and say, man, I learned a lot of stuff.
Man.
And I feel like we're having this conversation right now, both, kind of on the other side saying, that was a good experience.
I'm so grateful for the experience. But at the time I was calling up every comic that I knew going, oh my God, what do I do? And they were like, oh yeah, that'll happen. That'll happen again. And I was like, whoa. And I was just glad that I had you there to, kind of walk me through that because It's difficult, man. It's a difficult thing. But
Yeah, I think every comic knows that
yeah,
feeling. And so we all have, I think, compassion for each other and empathy for each other because we've all been
yeah.
there. You know, I've had some real big bombs. One of my most embarrassing ones is, you know, it was actually in Tacoma at Laughs. Back then it was called Giggles. And basically we had a show and you know, back then, you know, I was still doing all bringer shows. So I had like 20 of my friends there. And I was just so nervous because it was the first time I was performing in front of like my Seattle friends.
Yeah.
And so I slammed down 2 Red Bulls, went up there, and and I to top it all off, the girl I liked was also in the audience too. I invited her like a dumbass, thinking that I was going to impress her. And so I go up there and I run through my jokes like I had just done a line of
Yeah.
cocaine.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, and you know, and I'm like, and at the end, I was at only like 3 minutes. I was supposed to do 7. And I remember just kind of blanking out, and then that's all I got. You
Oh
know,
man.
after about an awkward 30 seconds,
Yeah.
which if you don't have anything more to say, you should just get off instead of trying to think of something to
Yeah.
say because that makes you look like a super
Oh
rookie.
man. Yeah.
And so, but here was the crusher, man. Right when I got off the stage, the girl I liked came right up to me, and she goes, "You were nervous,
Oh
huh?"
no.
And that's when I knew I bombed horribly
Oh
because
my
you know
God.
she knew that I was nervous. That was like the nicest thing she could say to me was, "You were nervous, huh?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Oh
so
man.
I'm like, "Yeah, I was nervous," but then I just went home, man. I left. I remember I just didn't even want to talk to anyone.
Yeah. When you do that, you got to kind of heal
But I
a little
learned a
bit.
lot, man. The biggest thing I learned is don't drink Red Bulls
Yeah.
before. Don't drink 2 Red Bulls before a set, man. So
Oh
now I
man.
do chamomile tea.
I've had friends who like knock off a few Jaegers because like their friends are there, and they're like, you know, hey, let's do a couple of
Yeah.
shots or whatever. So they do some Jägermeister or something. They get up and they're just like, why did I do that? I'm doing a job here. Why did I do that? You know what I mean? So yeah, so that's you know, it's a learning
Yeah, I
process.
feel like there's also a fine line with alcohol, right?
Yeah,
There's like a fine line where it can kind of help you because it gives you that liquid courage and makes you loose and you know, be able to get through your set. But at the same time, if you do too much, it can also make you slur your words and forget your set and blank out. So
yeah. I remember
you know,
when
it's a very fine line.
when I
that we
started doing
walk.
comedy,
That's why I just don't drink.
I just don't drink either. But it used to be I would say like you could have 2, and maybe 3 was when you start to think you're the funniest person in the world, and it's a problem. But yeah, so but I don't really
Yeah.
drink anymore because it's just a lot easier just not to, and just be there. And I feel like being a comedian, a lot about
I
it
agree.
is being present with the audience. And if you've done some kind of drugs or done some kind of alcohol or something like that, you've put a little distance between you and the audience. You know, you've distanced yourself because you're not as aware of what's going on. And one of the things, 2 things that I've learned in the last year or so is to take your time, not rush through, really allow people to react, and also be as present as possible with them, because it's not just you up there running through like a monologue or something like that. You're having an interaction with the audience, and it takes a little bit of courage to do that, even, you know. So tell me also about, you know, producing. You produce all these shows. Did you set these up over time as you were going along, and what kind of benefits do you get out of producing?
Honestly, in the beginning, I started producing shows just because there was so many shitty bringer shows, you know, and there was people that were like demanding a certain amount of people. And so I just got sick of like, you know, and if you didn't bring enough people, they would sometimes cut you or cut your time and stuff like that. So I was like, man, you know, I can do better than this. I can produce shows and make it a little more fair and equal. And so, yeah, I started at the Comedy Store, and I was lucky enough to start producing before the big comedy boom. And so I was able to get planted over at the Comedy Store. And then after that, and the first few shows were like half full. They weren't even sold out or anything. And this was in the belly room, which holds about 80 people.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I just kept going because I, did it initially to have good shows and also to trade spots with people. So that's the benefit, is that if you know somebody who has another show, let's say you could trade spots and be able to get more stage time.
Yeah, that's really good.
And so it started from the Comedy Store, and then from there I just started branching out more and more to the Hollywood Improv. Now I do Sycamore Tavern.
Yeah.
And also I produce a lot of the improvs on the West Coast now too. So
yeah,
that's a lot of fun.
I've seen that. You're going all into San Diego and Irvine and all over the place, which is cool. How do you keep your audiences? I mean, has it started to kind of build an audience where your just shows or have a kind of a built-in audience, or do you have to really kind of turn the crank every time to make it happen? Or a little bit of both?
Yeah, what I do is I try to connect with people, after the show.
Yeah.
And so the connections you make by meeting people and doing a meet and greet and then getting their phone number or email, those are the people, those are the fans that are what I call high quality fans.
Yeah.
Those high quality fans are going to show up for you when you come back.
Mm-hmm.
But if, they're just simply putting, their name on a card or something and their phone number or something, and you text them, they'll be like, take me off this list. You know what I'm saying? I was just trying to enter to win some free tickets or something. And so I like to, always connect with people. That's a big part of it. So I always tell new comics, man, build your fan base one person at a time. And that's really what I did over the course of 10 years. And now, honestly, there's people, all around the West Coast that come out because they've seen my show or seen my special on Amazon, and so they are true fans. And I honestly built them just one person at a time.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. I'm gonna have to wrap this up because the show will go too long, but I really enjoy listening to what you have to say, and thanks for being on the show, and also thanks for supporting me as a comedian as well, because it's meant a lot to me this past year, because you really just helped me grow a lot and also gave me a chance. And you're just a good guy. I appreciate it. So
no worries, brother. You're a good dude,
all right, man.
And I like working with you. And I'll just end with that. I think the biggest thing that people forget about is just being a cool dude.
Yeah.
Being a good dude is going to take you far in comedy or anything. People got to want to work with you.
Yeah.
And so you're one of those people. And I always enjoy booking you and working with you, Joel.
All right. Thanks, brother. I'll talk to you soon, and stay safe. Over and out.
Sounds good.
That was comedian Jimmy Shin in our second interview on the show. A little bumpy here and there with the intro. I played the wrong music in the intro. I had built the whole thing up that it was going to be Ethan Wall's music, and then I played my goofy intro. So that was just totally lame. I'm going to get that in there next time. Then I tried to fix it, and then it started over. So that's live internet for you. And thanks everybody for joining into the chat room. We are going to, once we get I'm getting my new modem today, so I don't know. Maybe we're going to be live streaming a lot. I would hope so. And I also hope that we can take more suggestions from the audience. And you guys I love you guys. Thank you very much. And I'll talk to you soon.